it's either completely ignored
Yeah.
or it's like a fixation that brands have with like dark social. They
Yeah.
understand it. They want to optimize for it more. They want to track it more. Okay, welcome back to B2B Shower Thoughts. Today we are talking about dark social.
Dark social. I was waiting to talk about this for so long.
Sounds scary. Dark social is the reason why B2B content isn't taken seriously. It's something I've been researching a lot. I've reached out to a lot of B2B marketers to kind of talk to them about this, how they're measuring it,
Mm-hmm.
how they fixate on it. And what's interesting is that it's either completely ignored
Yeah.
or it's like a fixation that brands have with like dark social. They
Yeah.
understand it. They want to optimize for it more. They want to track it more.
Mm.
But I think it's important now to start with what dark social actually is for those people that don't understand what dark social is.
So would you be able to give like a very simple definition of what dark social is, but without overcomplicate, just like simple terms?
In its most simplistic form, dark social is all of the untraceable content shares that happen on private platforms, on social platforms, on messaging platforms, on Slack, on LinkedIn DMs, and Instagram Messenger, X Messenger, all these kind of things. Any piece of content that's shared on those platforms between people is dark social. And you can go another step into that as well that also kind of relates to it. So someone sees a piece of content, you go out for lunch with someone, a colleague, a manager, the director, anyone, you mentioned something that you've seen. You even go out with a friend and you have a conversation there looking to find an SDR. So I was having drinks with someone the other day, last Friday,
Mm-hmm.
and they said to me, we're just talking about business, and they were like, hey, I'm looking to find an SDR and have these
Yeah.
specific needs. And I knew someone on LinkedIn that does this, like cold call for their entire business. It's like, hey, you should check out this person.
Yeah.
I said, okay, when I go home, I'll send you their profile on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
check out their content. I didn't do that. They followed up and said, hey, can you send me that guy's profile? I sent the guy's profile to him, his LinkedIn profile. He looked through the content, like, wow, this guy's like, looks like he knows what he's doing. It's like, yeah, reach out to him. Like, that's an example of a dark social share.
Yeah.
And it's so important in B2B is because that's where the real conversations happen. That's where like trust builds. If you think about B2B, holistically, B2B as an industry it's all relationships. It used to be relationships between someone in a business and a salesperson, where now it's more so with like a relationship between a person and a brand, especially because 70% of the B2B buyer process is research, and a lot of that initial research and the discovery side of B2B businesses is someone discovering one piece of content, and 80% of those content shares are dark.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
The reason why I say that dark social is the number one reason that B2B content goes ignored is because it's not the same as B2C content, where a lot of it is very light-hearted, it's funny, it gets a lot of engagement. A lot of B2B content doesn't get that much engagement. The content that we've put out there that gets loads of engagement it doesn't do anything, doesn't move the needle. Which brings me to my next point, and what I wanted to give some like real life examples of how this has worked for us and for a client. So an example where dark social has really worked for us is that last year we put out a UGC guide of like how to go from A to Z with UGC as a B2B business. Not much information out there. It did really, really well, got hundreds of downloads, but we got a lead from that, a SaaS business that reached out to us, a marketing director. I had no idea. This person didn't follow me on LinkedIn. They didn't see my content. I checked to see if they've engaged with our content. No engagement. And so we had this call though, and I was like, where the hell has this person come from? So the first thing we asked on the call was like, hey, how did you find out about us? I was like, oh, from the UGC guide. I was like, oh, they must have like downloaded it.
They
But
didn't.
this person has
didn't,
not
yeah.
downloaded they didn't download our guide. I was like, oh, where did you get the guide from? And they said my marketing manager sent it to me.
Mm. I remember that.
So
Yeah. That
it's
was a very interesting situation.
this is why it's so important, is because like I said before, it's where the trust is built through those organic conversations. And B2B businesses don't like it because we're obsessed with attribution
Yeah. And data.
and data, which kind of like brings on to the next point of why it's like so important is it's high intent as well. If you're sharing something with someone, it's because you
trust-based,
think
yeah.
that person finds that piece of content super relevant, and it's a signal as well, and it's also another touch point. But why it's so complex is that all these things are happening, but in attribution software we're not seeing any of these things pop up.
That's why they say the marketing dashboards are lying to you.
Yeah, they really are.
The truth is the marketing dashboards only tell half of the story most of the time. And I know this because I myself am obsessed with attribution and tracking. And I like to make all my decisions, like I like to make informed decisions based on data, right? But a lot of the times we don't have all the data. We don't have all the numbers, and that's where kind of dark social becomes so important in B2B. There are a few ways that you can track it, that you can measure it. Um, the first one is, and you've already mentioned this, what we did on that call, right? Just self-reported attribution. How did you hear about us? We ask all of our clients this on calls because it provides us insights, like real insights.
It's allowed us to double down on like what all the
Yeah,
content
what
that
works.
UGC
Yeah.
guide was like super useful. So now we've created more guides that are hopefully equally as
Yeah.
useful. So it's led us to make a decision in our business of like, this is content that works for us and works for the people that we're reaching out to. So the self-reported attribution is really important. The only issue I have with self-reported attribution is that people, if this was a long time ago that this share had happened, people aren't going to remember those shares. So it's not always 100% accurate. Someone could have shared a piece of content with them, or they could be sharing it in their Slack channels 6 months ago, and that person has then followed you on LinkedIn. There's like, oh, I saw you on LinkedIn.
So it's not fully accurate, but I think it's something worth doing because it's still. I think with people, when you ask them where they heard about you, they think of the last touch point, most likely.
A lot of the time, sometimes
Yeah, a
people
lot
are
of
a bit
times.
more.
But I think it's still worth doing because you sometimes get insights like this, right? Like we did with that prospect that we were talking to. They'll just say like, oh, this was brought up in our meeting, or my coworker sent me a screenshot of your post, or stuff like this. And that whole situation is the actual definition of dark social.
And it happens so often as well.
Yeah.
How often do I send you things
Great.
from people, LinkedIn posts from people, from companies, statistics, reports,
Yeah.
stories, case studies? Look, I was like, look, this is what we wanted to do. Or even if it's like, I know it's crazy, but like a competing agency, obviously we're not their buyers, but I'll send you that stuff. And the same people that are their buyers are also doing this as well. They did X for this company using this. Here are the results. I'll send you it. Or there's like a guide or like a checklist or like a cheat sheet or like just really valuable information that's out there. It happens so much. People don't even realize that they're doing this. And like I said before, it's 80% of shares are dark.
So now that you've mentioned shares so much, like content being shared, this actually brings me to my next point of how you can measure or track dark social, which is through custom UTMs, like create custom links. And we do this a lot with pretty much every single campaign, or like every single, every single piece of content that we put out. It's just creating these custom UTMs will give you like a slightly better understanding of where that traffic is coming from. And another example that actually comes to mind, I've seen personal branding experts do this in their content, where they use like specific like DM me words just to know to which post they can attribute the conversation to. So that is an option. Obviously, again, not you can't I don't think you can ever
It's not
fully accurate track dark social or
for
like
social, but by nature, dark social is untrackable. That's
yeah,
why it's called
yeah.
dark social. So
It's just like little things you can do to like improve
UTMs
your
work, but when it
attribution.
comes to like your LinkedIn stuff, it's hard to put UTM code
Yeah.
unless you're putting links in your posts and stuff like that. It's very difficult to track that, because the issue is it's not
Yeah.
someone going on to the content. It's like someone sending it to someone else in a DM.
Yeah.
So if you post something on LinkedIn, like a case study, they send it to someone, they read it, or if like a checklist is sent
Yeah.
to a Slack group, or a case study from a LinkedIn post, or even from a website, a case study that's been like downloaded and then sent
Yeah.
off. You're having the first touch point, but you don't have anything that happens after that. So UTMs do work if it's like link-based content, but then UTMs aren't. You're never gonna be able to have like
Yeah, I agree.
this percentage is 100% dark, or we know for
Oh
sure
yeah,
this
it's
is
impossible
dark.
to like fully accurately track dark social by nature. It's impossible. The one other thing that I could think of is to try to keep an eye on your website traffic. And if like obviously website traffic and branded searches, if there is a spike in branded searches, if there's a spike in people looking for you on Google or Bing or whatever, then and you don't have like
People still use Bing.
there is people who still use Bing, yes.
Okay.
I know. It's shocking. So if you see a spike in branded searches, but you don't have like a specific campaign to attribute it to, or like, you haven't done anything like out of the ordinary to justify that spike, it means something's happening in the background, it means there's like conversation happening
Yeah.
about your brand.
The thing is, it's even difficult then because dark shares are like high intent,
Yeah.
like I've mentioned. So you're not going to be getting huge volumes of like dark shares, but the dark shares are like the most important shares. So looking at kind of like spikes in traffic is good to attribute to certain campaigns, but you don't see any of that
Yeah.
that's happening
Yeah.
outside. So it could be dark social. It could be that people are sharing it into groups of hundreds of people and people are coming onto your website organic. It will show you as organic traffic on your website,
Yeah.
but it's really dark, which is another point as well, is that Google attributes dark search as organic search.
Yeah. I mean, it's again, we're never gonna, or at least for now, I don't think anyone's found a way to fully accurately track what's happening, behind the scenes, like in the shadows. Um, these are just like little steps that we can take to improve our attribution, or like improve our understanding of dark social, and like accept that it's there and it's happening.
Yeah, we'll come on to it in a minute in terms of like what dark social means for your business in terms of like how to create content for dark social. But I think first we should start off with why marketers shouldn't fixate on dark social. So like I said before, it's either completely ignored, no one knows, people know roughly what it is, but it's like whatever, that's just the nature of content, or they fixate on it way too much. So the first point is that obviously by nature it's completely untrackable.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do to completely control that. So you need to let go of the fact that I want to be able to track everything. The second point is that it can also lead to you optimizing for
the wrong
trackable
channels.
for trackable content.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't be totally obsessed with we need to have it. I'm not posting this unless it has a UTM code on it. Oh, what's the point in this? Because we can't track this piece of content exactly. And it can lead you to like overinvest in certain channels as well. So like people don't see the value in B2B content, right? So they'll push all their budget towards like everything that is
Ads, or
trackable.
like, yeah.
And that's like paid ads, UTM codes, gated content.
Yeah.
That's not how it works. Those things are like super useful, but like we shouldn't fixate on being able to completely track everything. But attribution is like the hot topic in B2B now. And that's what I mean about fixation or completely ignore. It's like either or. It shouldn't be either or. It should be both. You should have that stuff that you can track, the
Yeah.
paid side of things, all the demand capture stuff. But then you should also have the brand stuff, and that's essentially what dark is. Dark is the branded side of things, the things that people are going to go out there and organically share content. That's really, really important. And as well, you just risk on losing on the qualitative signals as well. You're not looking for any of the real value of like people sharing that content by fixating only on trackable content. You're missing out on all the people are sharing it because they find it really valuable. They're not sharing it because they feel obliged to share it, or
Yeah.
they're not forced into sharing it. And so that's why the self-reported attribution of like, how did you find us? And did you see that? You could even mention if you have like a big lead magnet out there, or like a piece of content that's like you think was like super valuable, like, did you see it?
Yeah.
And you can get feedback back from that as well. And the final kind of point that I want to make is that if you fixate on it, you start to undervalue your brand and community as a whole. You stop looking at the brand as like a super important part of how people are discovering your business, how people are that first touch point, or even the first 10, 20 touch points they have with your business. If you just completely fixate on dark and try and track everything, you're going to ignore all those other things of
Yeah.
just how people naturally fall into this 70% cycle of like buyers researching.
I think obviously, as with everything else in life and business, it's always good to have balance.
Yeah.
What would you say? Because when it comes to dark social, it a lot of it is basically shareable content, right?
Yeah.
What would you say are some content types that are most likely to be shared?
Because you can't measure it directly, there's a lot of things you can do, but the one thing that you can do is just design for it as well. And I know this sounds very basic and foundational to kind of just brand and B2B and content, is that you just create content that people actually want to share. Stuff that's like super valuable, relevant to your audience, and shareable. You shouldn't fixate on this needs to be shared by our audience. We need to create this piece of content so that people send it in Slack. That's not how it works.
But then what would be like, give me an example, like, because I can think of a few content types or like content examples that are shareable, because there would be stuff like frameworks, right?
Frameworks, cheat sheets,
Yeah.
infographics that are actually useful, not just like infographics full of just like waffle. Theories, opinions, thoughts, case studies. There's so much stuff that you can put out there, like thought leadership stuff, like challenging like common beliefs.
I think a lot of the I think a lot of the like snackable content as well is very shareable. Like if you have like a big content piece and then you take out stuff from it, obviously relevant, high value information.
Yeah.
That's also very easy to spread around.
Even like so we clip, our client has a podcast similar to this. We clip individual pieces of like sound bites from that podcast, but they're in a hyper specific niche. So their entire content is solely based on very, very niche topics within their industry.
Yeah.
Things that are happening, industry updates, and like thought leadership pieces that they include in their podcast of why this is happening in their industry and what it means for the people they work with. And some of it is like kind of on nose, some of it is very, very insightful. Those, when we've looked at kind of the self-reported attribution that they get from their salespeople and BDs, the podcast is the number one thing that's quoted as like the discovery to the brand, as how they saw it. So that's what I mean about like having content that's designed to be shared.
Yeah.
Those like thought-provoking pieces of content, sound bites, podcast clips, infographics, long-form pieces of content, like statistics taken out of that as like bite-sized pieces of content. Those are the things that are going to be shared internally. There are some people that we've seen that have sent 20, 30, 40 infographics that people have used
Yeah.
into their Slack channels, and they've mentioned it on sales calls that said that I've been seeing your content for 6 months. So this is what I mean, is that you need to create a loop of like super
Yeah.
valuable content, not stuff that's just regurgitated from the internet, and design for it. And forget about dark social for a minute. Design your content so that it is shareable, and dark social is naturally going to come, and you're going to get
It's
those
gonna
like
happen anyway.
dark shares. But it shouldn't be fixated on that's the thing. Keep it in mind, understand it. Understand that this is the way that buyers are researching. This is the part of the new
Yeah.
B2B buyer journey of how they're going from A to Z, how they're going from initial discovery to seeing all your content, to looking at your case studies on your website, to ultimately booking a demo, booking a call, reaching out to you. The dark part of that, you're not going to see the whole thing.
Yeah.
You might be able to track 30% of it, 20% of it, super valuable. You know what content is being shared, but you're never going to be able to track that entire thing. But just understanding dark, what it is, how it works, how it's part of the B2B buyer journey is a super, super important part of it.
So be aware of it. Don't obsess over it. Just know that it's there and it's happening, and just focus on creating high value content that can be shared
Easy.
amongst coworkers. And
Super
as
easy.
a last thing I would say before we wrap this up, would be that you always also need to keep your marketing and sales team connected. So don't have them siloed. Don't separate them. The easiest thing to do is put them both in a Slack channel so they can communicate, because this disconnect between marketing and sales is also bad for like your attribution and understanding where your customers
Yeah,
come
for sure. What I think an example, just so that we give people context of this, is a client we work with. The departments weren't siloed, but the way that they were using so all of the sales calls were logged with Fireflies, which we use as well. That was then put into a CRM in a separate notes column. That information, super valuable, but it's just dismissed. It was just, there was no structure to it. The questions were like, some weren't answered, some were it wasn't like part of their strategy. So what we did is we said, hey, let's just move this so that it's automatically sent from the CRM to a dedicated Slack channel, so that we have that feedback. And then we use Fireflies to take that and summarize it, and then categorize it as statistics of how people are seeing stuff. And the actual statistics weren't very useful because it was so scattered, because they have so much content. They have so many touch points that people were kind of all over the place. But what it did give us is just like a very clear answer to what was like really working.
Really
And
effective.
that's the best way to do it, is to make it like a KPI, have that self-reported attribution as a KPI for both marketing and sales, rather than just having it as a nice to have. It's to like really integrate it with your teams and make it like a fundamental part, because that's when you're going to be able to create better content as a marketer for the people that you're trying to sell to.
Well, it's definitely a complex topic, one that's not addressed enough in the B2B world. But I'm glad we had this conversation. I feel like it was really insightful. You've clearly looked into this a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we have it in mind.
Yeah.
We studied new B2B buyer journeys. I mean, every single B2B buyer, even in the same industry but a different company, is different usually. They go through similar processes, but the way that they interact with those businesses is different. So when we create the content for these businesses, or we advise on the content, or we audit their content, however we do it, we always kind of have this in mind. Is we say, look, a lot of the journey is dark. The content that you're putting out there is way too salesy. What we need to do is create content with dark social in mind, not for dark social only,
But keeping it in mind.
but keeping it in mind,
Being aware,
having it as part of your process when you are creating content, because ultimately you want your content to be shared, and dark shares are the most valuable shares that you can have as a business.
Cool. That was really insightful, Jordan. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with the world.
Thank you for listening to my rant.
And thank you to everyone who tuned in, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks.
Great.